But what I'm playing today for both the prelude and the postlude, I'm calling Hymns and Tunes Americana. American music is so vast and varied that I have a great deal of different styles and tunes that I'll be playing. Both the prelude and the postlude will each be 5 minutes, so don't think I'm playing all of American music. I do want to begin with this quote from Carlisle Floyd, as those of us who are U.S. citizens or others celebrate 248 years this July 4th, when the Second Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence. It was actually signed on August the 2nd. And Benjamin Franklin was the oldest one there. He was 70. So keep that in mind. Carlisle Floyd said, "What is American music? The most satisfying answer I've come across is that it was a kind of natural comfort with the vernacular, which is diverse and regional. It's not one particular set of sounds." So here goes 7 different hymns in different styles.
Whoa, he got quite a piano in there. Is this Boudreaux? I can't tell who it is. Huh.
Thank you, Don Bedreau, for this beautiful music. Wonderful. So good afternoon. My name is Jane Castleman, and I am today's service associate, and Reverend Matt will be presenting our message this morning, part 2, following part 1 from last week. Our opening words this afternoon are by Ella Boyer. As we create and share sacred space together, let us reflect upon what brings us here. We've all come here for different reasons, from different decisions, faced different challenges, and shared different love. And yet all of our differences have led us to this space right here, right now. Some believe we're here for a greater purpose. Others hold fast to a claim of complete coincidence. Others lie somewhere in between. And there are so many differences and barriers between each individual. It would seem at times as though the odds were stacked against us becoming one whole, as we believe different things, live and experience different things, and value and hate different things. But we are the children of God, the children of the earth, or fully grown adults here as a piece of the ongoing cycles of the universe, the children of the stars. We all have different definitions and explanations to who and what and why we are. Perhaps we're all right. Our revelation is not sealed. But despite all this that is different, there's one thing that is certainly the same. Somehow we are all right here, right now. So we're growing and changing and discovering all here, all together. Sharing the same sacred space we have shared for years and throughout generations, constantly evolving, constantly changing, and let us continue. Let us change and fight together. Let us adapt together. Let us grow together. Let us worship together. So I just want to welcome you, all you brave and curious people, to our LCUUF Sunday service. May your exploration in this community lead you to deeper insights and connection. As you know, our announcements were on a slideshow before the service, and we're also sent out with our weekly newsletter. If you're new and would like to receive that newsletter and other emails, please talk to a member of the Welcome Committee. Welcome team, or write us at uulc.org. And now a special welcome to our visitors. If you are visiting with us for the first time, or have returned or reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you are on Zoom, please introduce yourself in the chat box and it will be read aloud in the fellowship. Can I borrow your mic, Don? Thanks. We'll start with the people in the room. Here you go, Barley. Thank you. I think it's on. Anybody new here would like to introduce themselves? There we go.
Do I stand up? You can if you'd like. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome, and God bless you all. This is my first time here. I guess, is this like a unity church? No? Unitarian, Universalist, I don't know the difference. But hopefully there are no divisions in the body of Christ. Mostly we agree. And in agreement there's power. And that's really what the church needs now. I learned something recently which I never knew in 40 years that I've been studying the Bible, which is God said, take your authority. When he was in the boat and the storm came up and everybody was scared, he said, how long have you been with me? Don't you get it yet? Just take your authority. And what did Jesus say? He said, peace, be still. And what happened to the storm? Does everybody know what I'm talking about? The storm calmed down. Anyway, I learned that there is a power that we have as children of God. I don't know if everybody believes that, but the Bible says we're made in the image and likeness of God. And I've never doubted it. I never believed that we were descended from a monkey. I don't know if it's okay to talk. Okay.
Let's pass it on now.
Okay, so what I want to, what? Oh, it's a welcome. Okay, anyway, what I want to say is I'm looking for a place to rent. I'm looking for a house. Could be a casita. It could be a room or somebody who needs help because I do help works and stuff. But I just had a house fall through today at the last minute, so I need to find a house if anybody knows of one.
Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Anybody can talk with you after the service. Great. Anybody else? Okay.
Kate, do we have any visitors on Zoom this morning?
No, we don't.
Well, welcome to any of those anonymously somewhere, and to all our visitors and newcomers today. Here at LCUUF, as you know, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. So we hope that you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. Our chalice lighting words today are by Julian Lepp. We seek our place in the world and the answers to our heart's deep questions. And as we seek, may our hearts be open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. Yes. And now, having lit our chalice, let us sing these words together.
Kindle this night in celebration for the life that we share.
So each week we take this time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. The sharing of joys, sorrows, milestones is a way that we practice holding one another in this community. And we speak briefly of what is in our hearts, sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives, because there's power in that sharing. And we will start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys or sorrows in the chat, which Kate will read aloud later. First, let us voice our sorrows. Whatever you or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts, are there any sorrows that people here in the room would like to share today? Thank you, Barley.
I'm still sorrowful for the poor people all around the world who are in wars, in war zones.
I'm also very concerned about what goes on in Ukraine and in Gaza, but also the political divisions in the United States and in Europe.
Are we on to joys or concerns or both? Oh, good. I like that answer. I have a concern and a joy. The concern is I got robbed. Okay, it's not a pleasant experience to go through. You lose your phone, you lose your wallet, you lose a lot of contacts that you have with everything that goes on in your life. So that's the bad stuff. And you know, I believe in amor fati, which is the love of fate, that things don't happen to me, they happen for me. And having that do something, the joy is that I ended up at immigration and a woman went through exactly the same thing that I went through. And her attitude was, well, you know, we're here and we're wealthy by comparison, and maybe the money did some good. So, you know, it was just something that I had to learn.
Thank you.
Kate, are there any sorrows that were shared on Zoom this morning?
Yeah, we have one from Colleen Beery. Prayers for all those healing from surgeries or illnesses at LCUUF, including Paul, Trudy, Lynn, and Devora. May you be well, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And another one from Colleen for her dear friend Miriam Kazan, who is facing a recurrence of cancer in the south of France where she lives. That's it. Oh, a concern for President Biden. May he recuperate his gumption. And that's from Doug Mattoon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now let us share our joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, or whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace in yourself or others. Are there any other joys that people would like to share?
Hi, I'm Paula, and I am really happy. Paul fell Friday and fractured his wrist at tennis. He had surgery yesterday, and he feels really good. He's home, and everything went really well. And I really want to thank this community for reaching out and asking how he was. That means a lot to us. Thank you so much for your concern.
Hi, I'm Flo, and everything seems kind of bittersweet. It's with mixed feelings that I share joys because there is so much tumultuous stuff happening around us here and around the world. But I feel so blessed to be where I am here with you and with all my parts working, all my little parts. So we have a lot to be grateful for, you know. I have a lot to be grateful for, and I as I look around, I think we all do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carol, and my joy is that we have a new member of our family, and his name is Leo. And he was Colleen's dog, and she couldn't take him back to the States with her. And Paul and Paula have been fostering him for a while. So we've had him a week now. He's settling in really nicely, and he just is a love bug. He is a cuddly little dude. So we're really happy.
I think joys and sorrows are so close together that I'd like to share a sorrow and a joy. Some of you will know that Don Schnell, realtor, he's a beloved friend of ours, is on his deathbed. Don was a very important part of St. Andrew's Church, but also of the community. And I've known him a long time, so prayers and thoughts for him.
Hello, Hello, my name is Elizabeth Weaver, and I just want to express joy and thankfulness for all this rain, this continued rain. I'm so thankful. Having gone through what we went through, it just seems impossible to think that this was happening, but that is something to be really thankful for.
Kate, were there any joys on Zoom this morning?
Yes, we have one heartfelt Zoom from Bob Coaches. He is so glad to be back home from visiting the North.
So this candle from our care team represents the joys and sorrows that we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows and joys. I think they worked with the candles this morning, trying to get them to be more cooperative. There we go. No? Well, maybe. So let us share a moment of silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning. There are many ways to be of service to LCUUF. Our time, treasure, and talents, they're all necessary components to this healthy fellowship. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gift of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. And as we pass the basket, if you are new here today or you are struggling to hold things together, let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough for us. It's a real gift. Each week we give half of the money collected at the service to an organization providing services to our lakeside community. For the month of June, we're supporting Poco a Poco, which helps people in the San Pedro, Itzican, and Mezcala area east of us. This organization supports youth and women in this indigenous area through education, teaching local organic food growth, providing food and drinking water to renal patients, feeding over 300 children 5 days a week, offering health services as well as literacy and English as a second language. If you're not attending the fellowship in person, please donate to share the basket when you pay your pledge. Donate to share the basket separately or indicate what part of your donation is for share the basket. So the offering has now been generously given and gratefully received. Our opening hymn is Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing. Today's reading is from the book Something Deeply Hidden by Sean Carroll. a theoretical physicist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. And here's his quote. "Sometimes I've believed in as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast," notes the White Queen to Alice in Throughout the Looking Glass. That can seem like a useful skill as one comes to grips with quantum mechanics in general and many worlds in particular. Fortunately, the impossible seeming things we're asked to believe aren't whimsical inventions or logic-busting Zen koans. They're features of the world that we are nudged toward accepting because actual experiments have dragged us kicking and screaming in that direction. We don't choose quantum mechanics. We only choose to face up to it.
So I want to invite you into a time of meditation, a brief meditation today, just a kind of a time to settle in maybe a little bit before the strange stuff begins. To settle in, to find your center, find your balanced place. Perhaps you might want to notice your breath, attend to it, notice the in-breath and the out-breath. In and out. In and out. And let us return to this time, in this place, and be here now. And so, wow, some of you came back. So this is the second of a 2-part series on quantum mechanics, or QM. Last week, we noted that QM effects can be seen with ordinary everyday things, like we did with that little experiment with a laser cat toy, a couple of slits, and a piece of cardboard. The point was to show that the quantum world is relatively easily accessible. You don't need a billion-dollar laboratory or an ivory tower to explore the quantum world. Last week we noticed that quantum mechanics is probabilistic, that the universe plays a little bit of a game of chance, which does not guarantee any particular outcome. Now, certainly these probabilities are very accurately described by this thing called the wave function, which evolves over time. And when we finally do make a measurement, this wave function collapses into a specific singular result, like a photon on the screen in our little experiment, that little red dot. This lack of certainty, this probability bothered some physicists very much, leading Einstein to say, for example, God does not play dice. He wanted a better explanation for this than this randomness, this ambiguity. Further, last week we noted that quantum mechanics allows for a kind of instantaneous connection between 2 so-called entangled objects, maybe 2 particles, for example, no matter how far away they are from each other, even half a universe from each other. This was also bothersome to many scientists. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Einstein did have a way with words. But yet, explaining this stuff, explaining quantum mechanics, common sense doesn't help. Physicists have struggled to develop good explanations. And yet, today, even a century after QM began to be developed, we still have no clear consensus on what's going on. It's a little disturbing, isn't it? Nope, there's a clip. I mean, if you want a black and white answer, a nicely tied up solution, you'll be disappointed. If, however, you're willing to live with a sense of provisionality, ambiguity, of not being certain, I mean, if you're willing to believe 6 impossible things before breakfast, well then, worlds of possibility open up. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. In a way, QM seems a little bit more like a philosophy or even religion than science. In fact, I'll use religion today as a bit of a metaphor to help us understand some of these different interpretations, and we'll see if it's a helpful metaphor. So here's the thing. Physicists can't agree on how to explain what's going on with quantum mechanics. There are numerous QM explanations out there. Physicists call these interpretations. And depending on how you count, there are either maybe a half a dozen to several dozen of these interpretations. Isn't this just a little bit like counting the different world religions? So today we'll look at just 3 of these QM interpretations. So first, and perhaps the most widely accepted interpretation, is called the Copenhagen interpretation. And it was developed by physicist Niels Bohr here at his desk and several others in the 1920s. This interpretation says that there's that wave function that describes the evolving probabilities for the system. And for example, this wave function describes all the possible locations of that particle. The Copenhagen story says that when we make a measurement of that particle, the wave function collapses into the particular result, like the location that we see, the red dot on the screen. And that's it. According to the Copenhagen interpretation, we cannot really know any more than that. It's the great smoky dragon we mentioned last week. It's a mystery. So let me give you a religious analogy. When I was serving my previous UU congregation, I occasionally used the word mystery to talk about unknown things. And by that I meant things that we may not understand yet. But I realized I was getting a lot of blank stares from people when I used that word mystery. Many of these people were ex-Catholics, and one of them finally clued me in on that word mystery. See, they were taught that a mystery was a question you cannot ask in Catholicism. Things like transubstantiation or the virgin birth. Mysteries, as it were forbidden areas of exploration in Catholicism. And the Copenhagen interpretation is a bit like that. It says, in essence, do the math, but don't delve deeper. As one physicist put it, the catchphrase is, and I quote, shut up and calculate. But in avoiding the mysteries, Copenhagen opens up its own problems. One of these problems is, what exactly is a measurement? What exactly makes the wave function collapse? What is this collapse anyways? Some experiments suggest that some observer has to be involved for collapse to happen. A few theorists have even suggested that the observer has to be conscious, sentient. Is this so? What kind of consciousness? So could artificial intelligence stand in for human consciousness? Maybe some kind of quantum computer? That's the gist of a Scientific American magazine article out just this week. All of this is a mystery. So the Copenhagen interpretation, in trying to avoid mysteries, opens them right up. So the second interpretation is known as the pilot wave mechanics. And it was mostly developed by David Bohm in 1952, although there were others who worked on this earlier. Now here the idea is that in addition to that wave function, there is this separate thing called a pilot wave that guides the particles as they move around. It's a bit like the particles are surfers riding a wave. So this interpretation does talk of particles, and they really are particles, not some weird mix of waves and particles or wavicles or whatever we called them last week. And also this theory is deterministic, meaning that the particles have specific locations and velocities. We can track them down somehow. In some ways, the pilot wave interpretation is closest to the familiar classical mechanics that came before. So it's a little bit like some religious traditions, such as progressive strands of Christianity or Judaism, that try to adapt to the modern world while still hanging on to their cherished scripture texts, perhaps by reinterpreting the language in those texts at least a little bit. Now, it turns out that this interpretation deals with that spooky action at a distance problem quite nicely by viewing those entangled but separated particles as united by their pilot wave. Bohm extended this unification idea to the whole universe as a seamless, interconnected whole. This unified whole underlies the fragmented mechanistic world that we see day to day. For some of us, this is a very attractive idea. And you might see Bohm's book, Wholeness and the Implicate Order, but I gotta say, it's a fairly challenging read. Now, I should note that working with Bohm's and other non-Copenhagen interpretations was considered beyond the pale by many physicists in the 20th century. Bohm did not get much support for his theories. Meanwhile, his political involvement with the Communist Party got him in hot water with McCarthyism in the 1950s. He ended up escaping to Brazil, and his work was almost forgotten. It was almost as if taking a view other than the Copenhagen view was seen as heretical. Fortunately, there were no inquisitions or burnings at the stake. Physicists were simply just discouraged from working with these non-orthodox interpretations. So finally, we get to the Everett interpretation, which many of you may have heard of as the many worlds interpretation. So Hugh Everett wrote this idea up as his PhD thesis in 1957. In 1959, he visited Niels Bohr in Copenhagen to talk about his idea, and it was a complete disaster. Everett later described the experience as hell, doomed from the beginning. But he was able to get his PhD, and after graduating, he left theoretical physics entirely and went to work in the defense industry, including working on nuclear weapons research. But the essence of the Everett interpretation is not only do the math, but follow the math to where it takes you and fully see where it goes. In other words, don't try to add anything to the Schrodinger equation that describes that quantum wave function. No extra ingredients like pilot wave equations, no special concepts like collapse, just follow the equation. So it's appealing because it's very simple, even austere. This picture, by the way, is the Schrödinger equation written on Schrödinger's grave, on the marker for his grave. So simple to write down, just 5 terms. But if you follow the math through, you get something interesting. Each time you take a quantum measurement, you, in essence, create an alternate universe for each possible outcome of that measurement. Hence, the more common, sexier name for this interpretation is the many worlds interpretation. So the worlds are created with each measurement, and they're just a little bit different from each other. And then they each evolve separately into the future. And our world is just one of them. But what's hard for many people to fathom is the mind-bogglingly many worlds that get created. Consider, for example, the 2-slit experiment we did last week. For every photon that went through those 2 slits and hit the cardboard screen, a vast number of worlds is created, one for each possible place that that photon could have hit the screen. And we had a lot of photons. So at least that's the way I understand it after reading some pretty difficult discussion threads. Many worlds suggest a kind of extravagance in our reality, that we really live in this universe that's constantly spewing out scads of these alternate universes. And each of those alternate universes is doing the same thing, making more worlds all the time. Awe-inspiring or simply awful? You pick. People, including physicists, seem to have a gut reaction to the apparent extravagance of this interpretation. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Now, it's important to note that these worlds are completely separate from each other. There's no way to communicate amongst them, much less travel between them. Now, I know that many movies and sci-fi stories add in the possibility of travel between these worlds as a plot device. And I'm thinking of You, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. But it's not part of the physics. But good storytelling is in part why Many Worlds has become very popular in recent years. But more to the point, the Many Worlds interpretation is attractive to some physicists because it's clean, it's austere, because the math is as it is. To go back to the religious analogy, Many Worlds interpretation is almost Zen-like in simplicity, in contrast to maybe other interpretations that have layers of extra features. They remind me of, so the Many Worlds is almost Zen-like versus the Tibetan Buddhist world with all of its deities and symbology and realms and so on. If you're interested in Many Worlds, I recommend Sean Carroll's book, Something Deeply Hidden, which we quoted from earlier. Carroll is one of that minority of theoretical physicists that finds Many Worlds attractive, and he's a good writer also. So what can we take from this? I've covered only a few of the interpretations here. There are others with names like objective collapse, consistent histories, cubism, among others. And it's not clear which interpretation, if any, is on the right track. On top of these, there are many people, whether they be scientists, philosophers, religious thinkers, or even people in the health and wellness world who take ideas in QM as metaphors for other aspects of the world. They explore questions like, what is the role of QM in consciousness? Or how are things interconnected, unified in this universe? Could QM be a metaphor to understand things like traditional Chinese medicine, for example? Now, I'm completely comfortable with using quantum mechanics as a metaphor to help understand and clarify things that are outside the realm of hard physics. I'm okay using a metaphor to, even with mystics, to explore QM as a metaphor to explain ancient ideas, ancient mystical ideas, or personal spiritual experience. After all, we've used other classical metaphors to describe the way the world works. Consider that many of the founding fathers in the USA were deists. They thought that God, in essence, wound up the universe like a mechanical clock and walked away, allowing it to unfold according to classical mechanics. Or the idea popular a few decades ago that our brains are like electronic computers, thinking machines, whirring away inside our skulls. But I'm a little more skeptical when people claim that QM is the basis for certain spiritual practices they have on offer. For example, I really don't think that you can quantum jump between universes in the many worlds interpretation in order to, let's say, manifest a better job or get a hold of a winning lottery ticket. My wife happened to see this book on display at the local public library in North Carolina. I haven't read it, but I applaud the librarians for offering up a healthy dose of skepticism. And of course, if someone is making money on quantum whatever, selling treatments or crystals or investment advice or even better internet, I'd be even more skeptical. My credence would be pretty low. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. And yet, be curious. Do have a little bit of credence. Be open to the possibility that, yes, what you may be presented may be wrong, or perhaps it may be right, but for the wrong reasons. That is to say, maybe what you're being presented in fact works, but it really has nothing to do with quantum mechanics. It's just bad marketing. So be curious and skeptical. These things are ambiguous, provisional, uncertain. Well, we're near the end. And if you stuck with me so far, that's wonderful. This is hard stuff. And this was hard to put together these 2 weeks. And to really have understood it would have required delving into the math, which is beyond most of us, including me. So to continue with that religion metaphor, it's a bit like trying to do Bible scholarship without reading Greek or Hebrew, or ancient Buddhism without reading Pali or Sanskrit. That doesn't mean that we cannot benefit from the fruits of those religions. We just have to be careful who we listen to. We have to pay attention to what they're telling us. So my advice is this: pay attention to what your interpretation, theory, philosophy, religion suggests that you do, if anything. For example, are you being given some esoteric knowledge, secret stuff only to you that claims to raise you up somehow with special superpowers better than everyone else, that separates you from them? Or rather, are you invited to connect with others, with real people, and with the earth and the universe in some deep way? Or, and this is really important to me, are you being encouraged and supported to be in service to all, to make the world a better place? That's the essence. As much as we may want to know how the universe works at that deep, deep quantum level, let us not forget our place in the world and our responsibilities for living here. Let us continue our work to learn and grow, to live well, to be in service to others in this world, in this quantum universe, however it's understood. This is something each of us can do, regardless how we understand the underpinnings, quantum or otherwise. May it be so. So our closing hymn is Blessed Spirit of My Life. I'm going to allow Don to play it through one verse complete, and then let us rise in body or spirit and join in singing. With our closing words are by Jane Castleman with a little help from her AI friend. Ambiguity invites us to linger, to explore the contours of what is not quite clear, embracing the delicate dance between clarity and mystery. So let us breathe deeply and immerse ourselves in the meditation of ambiguity, inviting ourselves to release the grip of rigid expectations and open to the richness of the unknown. Let us surrender the need for definitive answers and instead nurture a spirit of curiosity and wonder. As we meditate on ambiguity, let us honor its presence as a fertile ground for growth, a sanctuary for contemplation, and a gateway to deeper truths. For in the embrace of ambiguity, we discover that amidst the uncertainties of life, there lies a profound beauty waiting to be unveiled.
Let us extinguish our chalice with these words, which we read together. Life, truth, warmth of the community, with the fire of holiness. Peace sweeten our hearts and share with all the world.
I can't resist this quote. It's by Etta James, the great singer, when she said, "I want to show that gospel, country, blues, rhythm and blues, jazz, rock and roll are just really one thing." Sounds like your sermon. Those are the American music, and that is the American culture. I also will add one little song right at the beginning to what I was not going to play. This is for you. This was also Gay Pride Month. This is one of our songs.
Thank you so much, Don. What an incredible treat for us this morning. So our worship is over. Wow, yes, wow. Woo. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace with a purpose and the joy from this morning. Thank you.